Hello and welcome back to the 10,000 Startups podcast. I'm Roger Royce. I'm a partner with Haynes Boone in Palo Alto, California. I do emerging growth and venture capital, and each week we bring you original content on issues of interest to startup companies. So today I want to talk about something that might not seem obvious or apparently of interest to startups or startup founders, but bear with me because it is. I want to tell you the story about the diet drug that cost billions, Fen-Phen, and I guess what I'd call the Fen-Phen disaster. This product had explosive adoption, massive customer demand, enthusiastic users, and extraordinary revenue growth. It is what every founder dreams about. But you know what? It also generated one of the largest mass tort litigations in American history. Fen-Phen. Now, Fen-Phen was it's short for something I can't pronounce, but it's a weight loss drug that became a sensation in the 1990s, but was later linked to serious heart disease and ultimately cost its manufacturer billions of dollars. So this is not just a legal story; it's a story about product risk, regulatory blind spots, and what happens when your growth outruns your understanding. So let's drill down a little bit. Let me give you some of the facts. So I want you to picture America in the early 1990s, right? We've got this obesity epidemic, which we still have today. The country's obsessed with weight loss. Millions of people are searching for a solution that doesn't involve dieting or going to a gym. And doctors start prescribing a combination of drugs, fenfluramine and phentermine, if that's pronounced right. And that's Fen-Phen. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I think doctors are a little quick on the trigger on prescribing drugs. I sometimes wonder if I have a doctor or a drug dealer, but that's another podcast. Anyway, this combination becomes known as Fen-Phen. Patients lose weight quickly. Doctors love the results. Patients love the results. Word spreads. Pretty soon, millions of people are taking this drug. Some estimates say more than 6 million users. Looks like great product market fit, right? Customers want it, doctors are prescribing it, demand is growing. Oh, the future is so bright, we have to wear shades, as we said in the early 1990s. But you know what? Then something happens. Doctors at Mayo in Rochester, they started seeing patients with unusual heart valve damage. Most are relatively young women with no history of heart disease. How could that be? Well, they all have one thing in common. They all used Fen-Phen. So in 1997, Mayo Clinic physicians reported a cluster of patients suffering from serious heart valve problems after taking these drugs. It looks like an anomaly, but then more reports emerge and more and more and more. And then the question wasn't whether there was a problem, it's just how big a problem is it? One of the hardest moments in any business is when reality conflicts with your story. And the data coming in suggested that certain components of Fen-Phen were linked to heart valve disease. Now, researchers also identified concerns about a rare and often fatal condition called primary pulmonary hypertension. So now we got a dilemma. Millions of people are using the product. Sales are huge. Customers love it. But there's evidence that these customers might be suffering life-altering injuries. So that is a founder nightmare. And if you're a director, oh boy, that's a boardroom nightmare too. And that's what happened next. FDA starts investigating. The evidence continues to mount. By September 1997, Fen-Phen products are withdrawn from the market. And you can just imagine the speed of the reversal. One day you're selling one of the most successful weight loss drugs in America. The next day the product's effectively gone. So what looked like a growth story becomes a crisis story. But the real financial damage hasn't even yet begun. So now you have millions of people that use the product. So even a small injury can create an enormous legal problem. So now we see lawsuits across the country, thousands of lawsuits, tens of thousands. And the plaintiffs are arguing that the manufacturers failed to adequately warn physicians and patients about the risk associated with the drugs. And this litigation becomes one of the largest pharmaceutical mass torts the United States has ever seen. Now, at this point, the legal system has this practical challenge. How do you handle hundreds of thousands of people who may have been exposed? How do you compensate people who are injured today and protect individuals who might not discover injuries until years later? So those are the questions that really reshaped mass tort litigation. Eventually, the parties reached a settlement, and instead of just simply paying current claims, the settlement system created a system for long-term medical monitoring and compensation. Individuals who had taken the drugs could undergo medical evaluations. Compensation would depend on objective medical findings and the severity of the injuries discovered, rather. The settlement involved hundreds of thousands of claimants and billions of dollars of payouts. Um, so the overall value was in the multi-billion-dollar range. And again, one of the largest pharmaceutical settlements in history. So that was the legal resolution, but also the template that really, even to this day, influences mass tort settlements involving medical products. But we're not done. Story doesn't end there. So whenever there's lots of money like this involved, uh, you start to look for the incentives. And sometimes those incentives are not all good. Some of them create bad behavior. And as these claims move through the system, allegations emerged involving questionable medical evaluations and improper claims practices. And courts were forced to devote quite a bit of attention to ensuring that the compensation actually flowed to legitimate claimants. In other words, the litigation itself became about as complex as the original product issue. So, what's the startup lesson here? There's a few things you can take away from this. Number one, product market fit is great, but it doesn't equal product safety. And customers may love your product while unseen risks continue to develop. Second, you scale too quickly, magnifies hidden defects. So a small problem affecting a few users can become catastrophic once you have millions of people using your product. And then third, post-launch monitoring matters. So the most important risks are often discovered long after customers start using the product in the real world. And I guess finally, reputation can disappear faster than it's built. Fen-Phen went from a breakthrough treatment to what is now a historical cautionary tale. And it didn't take long at all. So it reminds us that some of the greatest business risks are not competitive risks. They're the risks that when a product works exactly as it intended, it might also produce unintended consequences. So founders today, if you're building AI systems, biotech products, healthcare platforms, autonomous systems, um, another weight loss drug, or any technology that affects human well-being, the lesson is you can't just think about whether your product can scale. You have to think about what happens if it scales before you understand its risks. And that's a hard lesson here in Silicon Valley, where the mantra is move fast and break things, because that could be a very expensive problem for some types of products. So discovering a problem, it doesn't become a scientific issue at some point anymore. It may become a legal, financial, and existential one. So thanks very much. This is Roger Royce with the 10,000 Startups podcast. We've been talking about Fen-Phen, a diet drug that costs billions, and the lessons of that case to today's startup founders.